El Ministerio y el gobierno colombiano decidió en el 2013 ser parte de la coalición del clima y el aire limpio, reiterando su compromiso con el clima y con la salud de los colombianos. Desde hace unos 5 años atrás venimos trabajando en unas mesas permanentes con el sector ladrillero que buscan generar conocimiento y articular acciones para mejorar la calidad del aire en torno a este sector productivo del país.
Todo este tipo de programas nos ha llevado a que el sector ladrillero se organice y que los empresarios, pequeños empresarios artesanales, empiecen a aliarse y a trabajar hacia un mismo objetivo.
Es tener un puesto en una mesa que se discute mucha problemática que tenemos a nivel nacional.
Hemos podido crear sinergias entre cada uno de los gremios ladrilleros a nivel nacional.
Hemos podido plantear sobre la mesa nuestras propuestas para el cambio de políticas públicas.
Y qué gratificante poder saber y poder conocer el contexto de nuestro sector a nivel nacional.
El sector ladrillero en Colombia era una de las principales fuentes de material particulado que afectaba a la comunidad en temas respiratorios y cardiovasculares. Se reconoce el trabajo que ha tenido la CAEM, Corporación Ambiental Empresarial, que desde mucho tiempo atrás la iniciativa viene trabajando con el sector ladrillero y desde sus inicios ha aportado conocimiento técnico y nos ha permitido un acercamiento con personas en campo, con conocimiento y a través de identificación de tecnologías de reducción de emisiones.
A partir de ese momento, el ladrillero ha empezado a tener como un cambio de conciencia y de mentalidad de que es importante controlar las emisiones, pero además de eso, medirlas.
Pues todas las empresas estamos interesadas en tener pues unas emisiones más limpias.
Las mediciones nos dan una información técnica que nos permite a todos hablar en los mismos términos. Sin mediciones estamos hablando en abstracto.
Hemos, como país, reducido el número de hornos artesanales y promovido que se generen mayores actualizaciones tecnológicas que se ven representadas en reducciones de emisiones contaminantes.
Ya están empezando a construir chimeneas, a diseñar hornos como mejorados, haciéndoles de pronto una cúpula y dirigiendo todos los gases de la combustión a un punto, buscando la medición y el control.
Es una manera también de cuidar la salud de la comunidad que está a nuestro alrededor, como la de nosotros mismos.
Que nosotros como sector estemos más conscientes de la responsabilidad que tenemos y de los cumplimientos que tenemos que tener de la norma.
El sector ladrillero que representamos es un sector industrial, formal, sometido a la ley en toda su extensión desde el punto de vista de medio ambiente, de regulación económica.
A nivel internacional se reconoce el trabajo de Colombia, de la CAEM, en materia de las mediciones y el trabajo técnico y científico que se ha dado con el sector ladrillero.
Un agradecimiento especial a la Corporación Ambiental Empresarial, a la CAEM y a la Coalición de Clima y Aire Limpio por tener presente nuestro gremio.
Son más de 10 años en los que, con la ayuda de ellos, hemos logrado muchos de los procesos que hemos incorporado en nuestra organización.
Estar incluidos en la Mesa Ladrillera Nacional ha sido para nosotros, eso es un sueño hecho realidad.
Good morning to everyone. I wish you the best. I want to confirm two things, if you hear me good and if the translation is okay. And second, and if you can see the screen with the presentation. Sorry, we're fixing some technical issues here, and for the delay to start the event, and in a few minutes we will start. Well, maybe if you cannot see my screen, but I would like to know what it would be the schedule for today. I would like to tell you a little bit about the context and what we talked about, a little summary of the previous summaries of the previous sessions that we had. We have a special guest from Mexico, from the National Institute of Ecology and Climate Change, Dr. Abraham Martinez, which will present and strategy of contaminant as short life development in Mexico, sustainable development in Mexico, and later we will have a presentation of a new industry concept, which is our societies with a triple impact or benefit and collective interest in companies with a purpose, and with the experience we had in Colombia, and show you the model that goes beyond the model in Colombia and how can we impact and have this goal. And the brick sector has completed with this new model. Last, we will close with a presentation from our expert consultant, Sandra Villalobos, who will present how can we include these changes that focus on sustainable development on the brick sector, and then we will finish with some conclusions and comments from the attendants that you can write on the chat, and telling you that at the end we will have questions on the chat. A short summary of what we did on the last sessions is that the first sessions we talked about context on the brick sector in Colombia, in Asia, India, Nepal, and how from the public policies we have articulated the brick sector and good practices were generated for the sector, and this methodology was presented on the root sheet on the brick sector and the work in Colombia, and we received a good presentation and words from our friends from Asia, and we tell how the public policies in these countries are. So in the second session we talked about technologies and environment. We went to the detail on the factors of emissions and the results and emissions of black carbon. I think you can see my screen, sorry. We talk about the results on black carbon, the comparison of technological models, operational practices that we can implement. In the last session, we will have the opportunities to talk about the brick sector, that we have identified measurements to reduce black carbon and energetic science, and how this impact positively the community and of course the industry in general. For today, I had some words that I have taken the ideas from the last sessions, and this is a brainstorm with the sector, and tell our friends from Asia that about 15 days ago we had a public policy event in which we repeated these words, and well, we wanted to tell you these ideas and change as possible, of course, and offer the best work conditions, of course, focusing on sustainable development, a clean sector, the public policies discussion, production, and the brick sector that could be more efficient, and evidently the construction of scientific knowledge and build capacities in the countries, and that reduces to the emissions reduction and greenhouse gases and short life contaminants, and the companies should be socially responsible. Those are the ideas that I was able to take on the sessions, and I can give you with all this message. And also I wanted to show you that all of these actions implemented that we are generating and working in the brick sector, and it's in three brick axes, is the generation of strategies to reduce and mitigate short-lived climate pollutants, the formulation and validated model of the work that is behind the public policies that should land in improvement to support the companies, the entrepreneurs, to improve this production process, to intervene positively the process and give better lessons to the countries that are starting with it, and the methodological processes that we can work with and take actions with this. And I make emphasis lastly on the countries that have similar transferring, strengthening capacities, climate change, air quality, and health-related risks. And all of these axes are focused on these three axes that I have mentioned already. Well, also tell you that the initiative implemented is working in Colombia, is focused on the ODSs, and not only on energy efficiencies but also other goals for sustainable development that is health and welfare, accessible energy, and climate action. And all of this in the different goals that are in the different objectives: the reduction of premature mortality, the air quality in cities, energy efficiency in industries, and of course all the public policies and technical management, how to focus on these policies that are in the country and the leverage that have that we have worked with in different sectors and at an international level to be focused on the entrepreneur level. Today, for example, we have a special session that we talk about public policies, technical situations, and we want to give focus to different axes that focus on the improvement, the entrepreneur, and also the development goals, and a short summary and a description of what are the goals of sustainable development. So these are the objectives in the 2015 of the countries and United Nations committed to promote and rich, poor countries to promote sustainability, protecting the planet. And in this sense, all of these strategies are the 17 goals that focus on all of the axes. And later I will show you what is the goal and the goals that are integrated in these topics. So I wanted to give you the context of what we're going to talk about and how these goals are focused on this, not only talking about the economic topic, but a triple impact that promotes the practices and a level within the companies and also the communities. So I wanted to show you the goals that are, well, the 17 objectives, and what are the main goals of them. The 17 and 16 goals are related to peace, alliances, and to complete with these goals. 7 to 11 are focused on something related to the economy and prosperity of the countries. 1 to 5 related to people, quality of life for people, and 6, 12, 14, 15 are related to the planet and how the countries and each government can comply with these goals and considering their goals, the resources, how can they focus to comply with these objectives at the level, at a local level, basically. And now I wanted to introduce you all the objectives aligned to new dimensions that later my friends are going to share with you. And 16 and 17 is a new practice that is called corporate government that we can set to this goal, 7 to 11, and these additional practices with community, business model, the corporate government, and 1 to 5, how to talk about work practices and community practices, and the last one with practices for the environment, and how all of these good practices that we are aware of and maybe we have identified in the brick sector we worked with in the previous event that I told you before. We were able to identify practices with the communities that we are not only offering work for people in the communities that are near the counts, but also schools, composting, circular economy, using of residues, savings in energy, solar panels implementation, and how all these practices that we're working with in our companies in Colombia and in Asia. And we haven't been able to achieve this in sustainable development. Maybe make a better industry and make it more well, responsible, socially speaking, and talking about circular economy, the work with the community near to my kiln, and maybe those things that are small for the community but have a big impact at a national level. Well, lastly, tell you that from Colombia we were recognized for the work and job we did in the brick sector in 2020, all the actions and the work made in public policies and measurements, and we're recognized as a good practice in sustainable development, talking about the goal number 13, and more than an acknowledgement for KM, it's an acknowledgement for the brick sector and the international support that we had from other companies around the world. And more than everything, thank to you for giving us the trust and opening us the doors and allowing us to implement this initiative, and of course giving you the help and the trust, and we can change the chip that the brick sector is not that efficient or not that clean, or maybe with bad practices. And this is an example that this situation changed. So I wanted to give the floor to Abraham Martinez, who talks to you from Mexico. Let me confirm if Dr. Abraham is ready now. Yes, I can hear you. Good morning. Well, good morning. And well, now Mr. Abraham, the engineer, is going to have the floor. And thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you. Can I introduce? Well, can I make a presentation now on the screen? Sure. I think you can do it right now. Can you see it now? Yes. Can you see it? Can you hear me now? Yes. Well, thank you very much, and good morning in Latin America and Colombia. Good afternoon in Asia, maybe good evening, and thank you very much for the invitation to the corporation. Special greeting from Mexico. Can you open the presentation now? I don't know if you can see it now. Just a moment. All right. I don't know if you can see it. Well, thank you again. I'm going to try to make it slowly so we can have the translation in a better way. So I wanted to let you know that the strategy in Mexico, talking about the climate change, that probably Fabio already made an introduction, a very important introduction regarding the topic. And also I'm going to talk about how we can see everything from the view in Mexico. In the case of what we are suffering or having in the country is that we are in a medium latitude, so that we are surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Caribbean Ocean. So as you can see, we are looking some important situations from the optics of changes that we can see are increasing, let's say, in temperature at the sea level, the reduction of the precipitations, and the intensification of the categories of hurricanes in the last years. So finally, it talks about impact on the climate change towards the national territory. Also, from the perspective that Fabio mentioned, talking about the air quality, we are concerned that this climate change is going to affect the air quality or will increase some other situations that could be for the risk of air quality. And these climate change episodes will affect somehow health or will increase the bad quality of air episodes. And we have done this before and we maybe have this impacts already here. In the second case of Mexico temperature, let's say we are a country that have a high solar radiation throughout the year, and this is related to the location we have, and that is a climate change situation. Well, briefly, we have worked with more than 50 years in Mexico trying to evolve and understand the situation of the atmospheric contaminants. We have a history that briefly is described in here. I'm not going to give you all the details, but we move forward in different programs, actions that are framed in these documents that are here in the graph. But you can see here that we have evolved. Now, up to the last years, in groups of specialists, scientists are concerned, really concerned about the specific situation of the city of Mexico, and from there, our scientific knowledge has had determined to understand the contamination of the air and the atmospheric contamination and the effects we could have on emissions and gases and greenhouse gases. Well, talking about this concern, Mexico is the second country that generates an act related to climate change in 2013, and we were included in the Climate and on Clean Air Coalition, and we are a founder country of this coalition, in which we are very interested to take part of and to start with new actions. And later on, you can see the Paris Agreement and all of the other agreements that we had until 2018 that I'm going to talk about. We developed a strategy, a comprehensive strategy, that later on I will let you know. Well, in Mexico, how are we now? Our main concern, talking about the cities, is these are the three main cities. I'm not going to talk about details, but we have the history of the cities in Mexico, but these are the cities that we have almost 50% of the population, 60% of the national population that lives in the cities. We monitor the air quality, and as you can see, since 1990, these graphs can show the contamination in the cities is going down. Well, and then talking about this history, because of these strategies, somehow we can see changes. But however, in the past years, we have like a stop on the contaminants. So it means that we need to solve this and give better actions to reduce the actions related to the recommendations from WHO. Well, as I told you before, in the specific case of the climate changes, Fabio mentioned this already, talking about sources that generate carbon, and our commitment, as you were able to see in the previous graph, is try to bring this baseline of knowledge and concentration of the environment to the action of reduction of the concentrations by the strategies that we're going to develop in the next years. So we focused on generating knowledge through first experimental network that you can see the scientific articles in there, I will leave you the image and the reference if you want to see them and see how the concentration are, if we are in an environmental risk, which are the levels, and how can we lower the emissions, and the impact on climate change can be strengthened from the optics of the strategies that we are developing. Also, our work is taken to a revision of international pairs, and we talk about generation of knowledge in the BRIC sector. Unfortunately, in the case of Mexico, despite Colombia and other countries, we are working with very, very old technologies, kilns that are very old, like Roman type. These are the technologies that we have in our handcrafted kilns that you can see. We measure the particles, how we measure the black carbon, the organic carbon, to understand the impact levels on this type of activities. And our main concern is related to health and the air quality, and we are working in the coalition and other colleagues in CAEM that have supported us. And then after this contingency, because of the COVID, we can continue working in Mexico to receive capacities related to brick kilns and technologies. I also think that, and I don't want to talk about this much, because we can see the interaction and the relationship between climate change and air quality, and our sources and our common sources finally for air quality and climate change are the same, and they generate these contaminants and these greenhouse gases. And these are the recent coalition to talk about the ozone, particle matter, and these are the others that are in other channels. So what we developed were, well, with the support, I leave you the image from the front page. Unfortunately, it is only in Spanish. I want to be clear about that, but if someone wants to check it, you can copy part of the text, and in a translator, maybe Google Translator is easy to switch it to another language. Is a very simple language. I hope that we can have an English version. And this is the strategy on how we have a goal together with the NDC and national contribution at a national level. It's 22% to 2030 and greenhouse gases, and Mexico is the only country, well, the second country that is committed to reduce the black carbon emissions among the national commitments to 51% to 2030, to the year 2030. So this strategy is relevant to be able to achieve these commitments. Well, how can we find in this integrated strategy? Well, it is a strategy that has benefits in air quality, climate change, health, and we're going to see how is it going to be. So you can see in this document all the sectors. There is an analysis of all the sectors, what is the situation of the sectors, and the actions proposed, and an agenda for all of the sectors. In 3.4, you can see that there is a specific strategy for the brick sector, artisanal brick sector, and we have some actions to reduce ozone, HFCs, and the refrigeration and air conditioning sector. We talk about methane, and we talk about root sheet for the main sectors. All of this starting from emissions inventory, and we make a proposal how this should be evaluated on climate change, and how this impact would be on the optics of the actions and the economic benefits if we can take this strategy. Now you can see the link, if you want to use it. Well, anyway, I'm going to share the presentation with my colleagues. Finally, we have the connection we made. We work actually with to understand the actions and how this will be oriented towards the sustainable goals that we have here in chapter 6, and how the science should support the actions that we are proposing, and not ideas only, but also have the scientific basis. Let's say you saw the articles that we were able to analyze, and how are we going to do it on the next years, and the commitment with the 51% to reduce the emissions. Well, finally, something that should be clear in this strategy is how there is an effective communication for people, because we have to take it down for everyone, the politicians, the decision makers, and we establish a communication strategy in these documents as well. Finally, we are working with a clear instrument in the national policy. We have a national development plan that, together with the national environmental program, they are focused on the sustainable development in each of their activities that I'm going to show you in a while, and how in the end this helps climate change, and that we have a national climate change program. The PROAIRES is one of the national program related to the quality of air. We have a climate change and air change for cities. These two programs are aligned with the National Development Plan and the Environment Plan, and they should comply with the Sustainable Development Goals. Here, the strategy, for example, as you can see, you will be able to find it in this document. It's something that Fabio showed in the presentation we made, and in a presentation talking about climate change and the actions and the goals that we are working with. In the case of the brick companies, the fourth column, if we can take these actions that are proposed here, they will help the goal of poverty and also health, that we're contaminating our people. It was discussed in and the technologies and the benefits for the people in the brick sector, and the health of the communities. And we built all of this, this matrix, the ODS, and strategies that we make a clear match between action and benefit for them. I insist that this strategy is focused on how can we comply with the goals and how to benefit the sector as well. So we are also focused on working with or supporting the knowledge, our scientific council that supports the actions through funds to support the national. And in this moment, we are working with the implementation of what we know, low emission cities with a territorial approximation, where it means working with communities and populations to improve the quality of air and reduce the impact on climate change. Well, these are the two last slides in the considerations. The final consideration is that Mexico has taken concrete steps to talk about climate policies, so we can work with air pollutants and short-lived pollutants and air quality. We have included through this strategy in the National Program of Climate Change. It is important to outstand this information because the national program turns to air quality to see that I need air quality and strategies to comply with my climate change objectives or goals. The air quality is integrated in our case and programs that I'm not going to talk about. And this national strategy is a dialogue document. We never talked about this document as the absolute truth, but it's a document that is going to help the decision makers to take actions, and that is the main goal of our document, to be a guide, not final policy document, but it's a supporting document for decision makers. Not the end. And the conclusions is that sources, we cannot talk about isolated or separate thing, that the quality of air or air quality is going to be a different topic with the brick sector. We have to work with climate change and air change to have the benefits in climate change and air quality. We cannot work in different directions. We have to homologate all the different talks about climate change and how the two visions have to work in the two sectors to be straight to the point, and we comply with the time, at least with the compliances we have for 2030. And this is the inventory that we work with. Maybe you lived with this, and we talk about the greenhouse gases. We have the possibility that we are going to talk about the sectors, and we can leave them aside, and we can see that they have a specific problem on climate change, but not air quality. But when they are integrated, maybe the problem would be fixed simultaneously. In air quality and climate change, the multiple benefits should be focused on and seek that strategy that we included in the strategy, not only talking about air quality, that also focused on sustainable development, and also the health and economic benefits that we can discuss with this action. Talking about optics in the territory, these actions can be seen from the central offices in a country, and how we can go to the field and work with the communities, with the brick sector, and we can see the problem with the bricks. And there is a problem in this sector that we can take actions to make it more effective. And as I mentioned before, this should benefit the health, gender, energy, economic part, and the territories. So, and this is the vision that we wanted to share with you, and thank you so much. Thank you, Abraham, for your presentation, and it was very interesting from INEC, and that is a work model that is an example for us to learn, and thank you very much. Bitja, Sadrul, Asad, and Ms. Lusaida, that is together with us in the event, and we're going to continue with the agenda and the event with the presentation of a new model of industry and the impact that we wanted to show you, an experience in Colombia, but because of time, we already recorded this, and so we're going to show you this presentation right now. Any question? Of course, you can do it in the chat. Our entrepreneurs that are today here with us, it's a pleasure to share this space with you. Good afternoon, good evening, in Nepal, in Bangladesh, in India, and Pakistan. Today, I'm very happy to be with you. My name is Luis Eduardo Pireto, and I am part of the environmental KM. So I'm going to show you a new model of company that we're going to start implementing. That is, it's called big societies, which is companies with a purpose. And I also wanted to thanks the Coalition of Climate and Clean Air to allow us to take part of this important event and give us this space to tell us to tell you the new tendency of this organization. This is a project that we are starting with, from CAM, together with the Chamber of Commerce of Bogota and the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, that we are starting to promote companies and triple impact. And what does it mean? It's a triple impact that we don't only talk about the individual interests of the companies to um, to make money, but also include the concept of the care of environment, the impact on societies and the environment. We also had, as we told you before, an individual economy to a collective economy. It is a new collective, but we've been working with in development. It started in 2008, 2010 in the United States, and later it went to migrated to Europe, Spain, France, England, and it became stronger and consolidated. And in 2017 and 2018, it started in Latin America, and Colombia is one of the pioneers together with Uruguay, Chile, and Brazil, and start including this new company or entrepreneur concept. What is this? What is big? What are the big societies? Commercial societies that are related to um, the same interest, and we started to there's new details and talking about what we're looking for. This type of model is focused on society, commercial societies, let's say entrepreneurs like you, right? So not only big entrepreneurs, it includes also small companies and micro companies, family companies, that in their concept and their essence they are commercial societies looking for the benefit and the collective interest. And when we're talking about the collective interest, is the interest of the society, the interest to take care of the environment, not putting aside the economic interest of our organizations. So to go further, the big societies or the commercial societies with benefit and collective interest are Colombian societies. This is a new concept that is starting to have relevance and scalability at a national level, that also has an international interest, and also these commercial societies that voluntarily, not nobody, or any person is bound to do this, but is to include activities and traditional activities with actions that are focused to improve the workers' welfare, not putting aside the impact in the society and activities from my region, from my country and community to contribute to also with the environmental protection. Is also to have a better environment that we found, and as we have heard in different sessions that we had with the coalition and with the ministry, we are very concerned about the air quality, the environment, and we're concerned about the incidence on the climate change, and that's what we're talking about with this model. Apart from the economic development and thinking about the protection of the environment, we're looking for companies with a purpose that could be included and could work with the care of societies. The purpose of the society is, of course, here, and in this we're going to talk about this a lot, yeah, because one of the purposes is to include a purpose, a social purpose that goes further than maximization of the economic interest of the associates and shareholders. We're talking about social, environmental, and economic goal. So we can talk about this for the societies can maximize the interest and this, because being a big society is not going to impact the environment and social sectors that is going to have a positive relevance in my economic interest. And finally, to guarantee transparency. Transparency in what? In my impact and the 5 dimensions in my report, and then company report that includes all of this concept of big societies. In Colombia, as I told you before, we started with this path in 2018 when the Act 1901, through which this type of societies were created, these commercial societies with collective interest and benefit. In 2019, the Decree 2046 was issued, including all the conditions, the regulation, part of the big societies. What are the 5 dimensions, the practices, company or corporate practices, and the 5 dimensions, the roles and dimensions that are part of this model in this country, and the conditions that of this model to be given to be stronger and have the relevance we have, and little by little we're getting. Now, and up to about 15 days ago, that we were able to see that this model started in this year, and in the past months it started to be stronger, and there are 370 companies that have the peak condition. So it is relevant, and you in the brick sector and the ceramic sector, it's not apart from this, because you work with this, and some of these companies are working with this. We are working with 8 different companies, that brick companies at the national level, that they can see the benefits, the advantages of this model. And when we talk about advantages, I wanted to show you some of them. Increase the regulation level. When I can see a company that is taking care of the welfare of the workers, that is concerned about the environment, that is paying attention to the location, the community, and the population around the community, that increments the reputation value, the name of a company, and many eyes started to identify this type of organizations. There is an interesting study that has been developed in the past months, which are the main clients of mobile companies in the country, and 60%, it's a population that is between 15 and 30 years or 35 years old, that or called millennials or centennials, that can identify a particular interest on the care of environment, and that can be involved in the communities and societies. And these are the types of companies that are taking care of the environment, what type of companies are taking care of the participation of the society. And the triple impact is relevant in the entrepreneur sector or the corporate sector, that is part of this commercial society. Second, it is important to create a relationship of fidelity with the suppliers, let's say in the brick sector, or loyalty, it's better to say, for example, the conditions that I need for the, let's say, to make the manufacture everything. Well, for example, I need this carbon, I need this loyalty, and because I'm paying for the same thing, and I am responsible for constant payment, for example, and my customers. I start with the loyalty of my customers, let's say, in the pandemic, and all of this sectors and loyalty and customers because of the pandemic changed, and a positive and negative impact, and we try to get this loyalty and to make loyal the old customers and bring new customers. And third, the human talent is important in our organizations, for example, and we can talk about to work with for the welfare of this worker, and bring this new workers and bring new talent to the company to make us work. For example, these companies are taking care of this, and so it makes to bring private investment, international or national, to invest in the company and the organization and make it grow and manage the company's activities with the environment and the communities, and be part of this network of communities that we can work with chain with others, with other companies that could be similar, or my suppliers, my customers, and that improves, and this ecosystem we could grow. And finally, the national government developed some economic or tax incentives that can leverage this type of companies, well, our national government, well, defined it 4 steps, and I think it is the most important of them, is to have the conviction to generate a positive impact in the society and in the environment, and as we were able to see in the presentation. Being a society is something voluntary, and I have to be convinced that the impacts this model is going to generate, this new way of making a company in my organization. So I'm going to have a relevance with talking about the welfare of my workers. They are going to work in a better way. They're going to produce better. They are going to produce efficiently, and they are going to use their resources and the materials and the equipment in an efficient way. So it's going to make my company to be more productive and more competitive. And we're talking about better things. So we're starting to understand this, and it's generating this positive impact. And when I have this condition, I have a meeting with my shareholders or my, and we can talk about this practices, and we can include this in our act, so in this document, in the signed document by the president or the secretary of the assembly, or I can take that to the Chamber of Commerce. And this document should include one, to change the statutes of the company, including in the social object the big goals, and that we talk about the 5 different dimensions, and each society has a practice in the 5 different dimensions, comply with this, and our big societies also include the big acronym, and for example, if I have services, SAS, including the big in the social name, it's going to be Servicios SAS and big. And it has a brand and logos and manual use of this acronym to include in the communications and the paperwork, and because this is a community, it's a corporate community that is starting to grow and become stronger. And the fourth one is to go to the Chamber of Commerce in the region, let's say in the Colombian case, and then with the document we adopt this condition. So we talk about the 5 different dimensions. Then the 5 different dimensions are this. One, business model. Oh my gosh, what is that? So we're going to see what is the detail of that and what are the practices related to it. Is a fair commerce, like how to import if I buy to my partner that has an entrepreneurship, or the cooperative of women in my region. So I'm improving and I'm including these people. So talking about this, we're going to create employment, and my region and my community is going to improve. Corporate government, why it's important to have this, and we're going to see this. There is something that I can repeat. Having corporate government makes my company to improve more. So we're talking about economic part and how to improve this economic aspect. So talking about work practices, if my workers have a better welfare, they're going to have a better conditions and they are going to work better. So it's going to improve my production, and it's going to reduce costs, dead time in the company, and everything is going to be more efficient. Environmental practices, we have talked about all of these chats from the conversations with CAM and the coalition, that is the environmental topic, how to reduce the impact on the environment, and how through technologies and raw materials and energy I can include them, and how that is important in the big societies, and how the practices with the community are part of this ecosystem, to work with foundations, and how to identify my niche in the community, or my, for example, all the people that live around my plant, for example, that is important to identify. And as I told you before, the national government has developed some incentives for the big societies. For example, these incentives mature as this community grows and grows. So far, we have four. One, special fees in with the Superintendency of Industry and Commerce, and they lower this fees when you acquire the services. For example, with Black Caldex, we have some preference in credit lines, let's say lower rate than the conventional ones. So we're going to lower down to interest points, and we're going to give more flexible times, and they're going to be improved in these credit lines with Bank Caldex, with the tax authority. We can talk about these companies that can distribute this with the actions in the, for example, a discount on taxes because of from the utilities received from the workers and actions on Icontech, in which there are some preference tariffs or preference fees. Then we are generating, and for example, in this buy our stuff in Colombia, and we are linking all of these companies to buy our own products at a national level. To make these reports and to identify how am I building with from a preference point with the model of big societies and in the practices that you have chosen, it is important to make a good management, to define how am I doing it, how we can start, or the baseline for this, and what actions am I taking for this corporate practice, and after a year analyze how am I doing with this. And some companies that determine the carbon footprint and to compare with the previous year, and I demand this, I lowered down the greenhouse gases emission or my carbon footprint. I don't know, let's say from the corporate government, I have a policy and a vision and a mission. I started that for the next year I would have a mission with my workers, and I check this. So to make a checklist, this management, this follow up with this corporate government for through the superintendency of societies define 5 different standards, corporation B, or the green standards, or the SDG compass related to sustainable development led by the national the United Nations, and or for example ISO 26000 talking about the report, and the big and sustainability. It is very common for small and micro companies. We can talk about that, but when we involve in this type of standards, the topic is a very interesting universe, and when you can see the impact you are generating, you will start involving in this type of topics. So there are some commitments with big societies that they should prepare a report every year on management of corporate practices. What did I do? How did I do it according to the standards? That is the main commitment, but also the condition can stop. So as we mentioned it in the definition, acquiring the big condition is something voluntary, but it's also voluntary to lose this condition. So I'm tired of this, but you will not be tired. But I don't want to be big, there's a new standard, and I want to go over there. So you voluntarily notified it to this to the Chamber of Commerce, or maybe the Superintendency of Societies found some of these findings. So the company reported something that is not related to the reality. I committed to lower down an efficiency index and the combustion of 160 kilograms per ton of clay to go to 100. But instead of that, going down to 160, it went to 300. But my kiln is not working better. But that was not reported. You told me that it was reduced. When actually it is not a sin to tell, but to notify this and report this. When you told me that it was 80 and it went up to 300. So this is transparency, remember. Second, the company will not comply with the methodology determining the chosen standard. Let's say there are 5 standards: B, conditions screen, compass, W, double A 1000, and I get one. And I went with the green standard. So the green standard, I started to identify that the environment is 305-1. That is emissions. When I was making my standard, I do it with the Model E. That is not talking about direct emissions, but total carbon footprint. So it is not comparing. It is difficult to compare pears and strawberries. So and the third one, the management report is not delivered to the assembly or is not available to the public. So, but what we're trying to do is transparency in the niche. There are 4 important stakeholders, and the main ones is the entrepreneur, and also there are other 3 important stakeholders that make regulate us or promote them or adjust them. And these are the 3. One is the society superintendents, that is in charge of exercising the supervision of the big societies and comply with the regulations to give guidelines and identify these standards. The chambers of commerce, because they have this role, the relevant role in the promoting, and if I am an entrepreneur, go and acquire this big condition in the superintendents of industry of commerce because they are part of the ecosystem incentives or fix all of this situations before the chambers of commerce. Now we're going to talk about a little bit more of the 5 dimensions. The business model. There are 2 different important corporate practices. One is acquiring goods or services from companies from a local origin or those that belong to women or lower population. So we can talk about let's say specific. So I'm looking that there are companies at the local level or Colombia buy our own stuff, and we're helping the development of a country, or maybe the I buy it to displaced women in another municipality, and we're talking about these people in risk. This I'm going to help them, and that is help to build a country. And for example, programs that the companies are part of the society, of the collectives. When we're talking about fair trade, is something big. If I sold my production and I receive a payment and I owe my carbon provider, I'm not going to wait 6 or 3 months to pay to them. But if I have the resources, here are the resources. We can continue with that. That is fair trade. If I work in a good way and I receive a good treatment, I will do the same thing with my suppliers. Buy at a local level, buy to women companies or minorities, for example, or preference to hire providers that would have equitable, or maybe buy these people that have fair trade. And fair trade is talking about different options for not favored producers or transparency and responsibility with the suppliers that they are transparent. Like we're talking about anti-corruption policies, and we can include this or fair trade practices. If I'm going to pay to receive the payment today, I'm going to wait in six months. And other thing is a fair payment, for example. Okay, we can ask for a discount, but it should be something fair because that is someone that is buying a product or service that is depending from this payment. No children work or not difficult work. No, here is a fair trade. No discrimination, gender equality, and freedom of association. So this is only for men, and you cannot work with me if you're a girl. They are empowered, and that is something that is, for example, in Boyacá, another girl working the same as the other people. So they didn't. It was not difficult for them. So they take this discrimination veil. So it is a work for men and women as well, working in good conditions. It's let's say a kiln. Uh, it's 1,200 degrees, and when the person is feeding the kiln in this big thing, and this man is not protected, it should be affected in their health, and maybe a spark went to an eye, so it's difficult to take these people to the hospital. So that is a fair trade, good work conditions, and also develop capacities. Not do the same things, but try to promote, to improve the capacities of the company, improve the capacities of the worker and the managers and everything. And then it takes to promote this fair trade. Respect the environment from the suppliers, respect the environment. You demand the providers or the suppliers to respect the environment when you receive service or some goods. Maybe we're going to change the oil on the machine, and you ask and you see that this person is going to be to discharge this oil, the bad oil, and let's say in a river, maybe this person should give another treatment to this oil, and that is a different thing. So it makes a fair trade for you as company and the suppliers. The other one, corporate government. There are four different practices related to these big models. Create a value for the employees and expand the diversity of composition of the boards and share the workers with the status of the workers. And why is this important? Why are you talking about this? Because the corporate government is a collection of regulations, principles that regulate the government of the company. For example, in here, it is very common that many of you have family companies. Maybe I'm the father that I started this business, and we started with something basic and account, and then we have a common kiln or nebulizers that generated that. But I'm the one that manage uh, pay the pay the payroll, and also I do everything. That is difficult for a person. And I bring my let's say my cousin to start working with these brigades, and then I bring my brother. So these companies, the family companies, are very very important, and many of the companies are family companies. But all of them, even there, if they are family members, we have to give them roles and functions. That is very important. Not my cousin, my uncle, my brother, and me. We all have will manage, and this person goes to the right, this other one goes to the left, to the front, and to the back. So this is going to be difficult. But if we give them roles, and we can establish relationships between the stakeholders in the company and the board directors and the assembly, what is going to be the legal representative, what is this person going to do, how am I going to interact with my suppliers, with all of this ecosystem, this niche, this structure in my organization is very important to have them organized, and that is made by the corporate government. And they should act in a transparent and a good way. What are the main goals of the corporate government? To improve decision making. Who is going to make decisions? How to do it without problems or no arbitrary. So the person, let's say, I tell that everyone would have a lunch of 30 minutes, or maybe we can start the works at 7 and leave at 7. So we have roles and responsibilities clearly defined. If we're going to work with relations with the suppliers, it's not with customers. It's only with suppliers. And if you're going to talk about production, if you're going to work with the production, why are you doing, what are you doing with the purchases, let's say, or payment to customers? So it is important to determine these roles and responsibilities. Supervise the management. Of course, I have to have goals and monitoring these goals. For example, this month I need 30 tons of this. It's, the other thing is being clear in the information and communication. If I pull someone the scenarios that I'm telling my employees, all the information should be the same. Reduce the risk. Let's say it is important to identify and have plans or actions and monitor them. And if, let's say, for example, identify a risk, the supply of carbon, there is an important flooding because I didn't have a protection for the carbon, the floor was not good, and this carbon that I have to deliver, this material, let's say, on December 9th, and I have to start it today, and I didn't identify the risk. I didn't supposed to have all of the good conditions to complete the process. So I have to make the action plan. Let's improve the floor. Let's improve the ceiling and everything, the combustion and everything. So I am to allow the carbon to fix it, to avoid the community to have problems. So we start to identify and then improve the reaction time to take advantage of the opportunities and participate in a transparent and public list. So we have to define that in offer the government in turn and the community to define and determine these times and the response times. And the last one, let's impact the reality of the company. Have a corporate government. It sounds good for medium and big companies, but for small companies, I only have 10 employees, so I'm not going to comply with it. It is important to have it because the companies that are big companies in this 370 are micro companies and small companies because they are small, they have to work in a different, disorganized way. This is going to help me to bear in mind and have clear where am I going to and where am I going to grow. But the company is me and I have 3 different workers and I hire when I'm burning. So we have to define specific roles and functions to them. So if you're going to be the manager, the decision maker, take your roles. Don't talk about message delivery. So it is defining roles and it applies for all type of companies, micro companies, small, medium, big family companies, and small exercise. Carvajal, which is an important company in Colombia, producer of paper and of its products. It is a family company and it's very big. But this is my cousin. My cousin goes there. No, so hold on for a minute. You know how to work? You know how to manage? Okay, let's see your experience, your degree, your studies, and everything. So you're going to start working here. Is that you're going to start working with experience and work very hard with this. What is important to have a corporate? Why is important to have a corporate government? Because it has benefits. One, improves the company valuation. According to statistics, the credibility increases and the value of the company increases in 20%. The improvement in administration of company, the risk management improves, the sustainable growth of the company improves of course. The important thing is to grow, to establish the trust of the investors, the customers, the suppliers, and it increases the access to credit. That is difficult to ask for a loan for credit. The company is defines roles, functions, and has a corporate government. Well, this is a serious company. They attract human talent, like in my case. And also, it promotes the company's image. It is important to have that role. Now, we can work with work practices. There are four main work practices. First, establish reasonable compensation for the workers, establish subsidies to help to develop professionally the workers, create options for the workers to have a participation in society, and offer options for the workers to have work flexibility or telework from home, let's say. It doesn't go for everyone. So, the first one, establish reasonable compensation or salary for the workers and analyze the different differences in bad payments and good payments, what is reasonable for people. The journal, let's say that many of them, the workers work for every day or a compensation for an every day. So everyone should earn the same money for the or but there should be a difference for the person that is in charge of the group and give them a condition of reasonable salary. Reorientate the professional development is establish the subsidies. When we say subsidies, I have to give them money. No, not really. There are different ways. For example, offer our workers options to have a different orientation. There is a lot of illiteracy in the brick sector. Maybe we can tell this person to study at night. For example, if they start studying at 6, you can leave at 4:30. So go to study and finish your high school. Start reading. I need you to help me with the bills and give them these benefits that could be economic benefits to increase the education costs or permits to go to the school or free programs that can approve or help these people to study in different courses, let's say in the public sector, those energies, let's say for the different machines, for the kilns, different types of maintenance, or you can go to different courses, let's say engines that are free courses from the government. It's promote that my workers not continue doing the same thing every day, but train them and learn new things that is important for them. Everyone can do it. For example, SENA has free training, but also the welfare companies have these trainings. ARLs have also help for dress therapy, psychological therapies, and professional accompaniment. That is something that they need. Another thing is the third practice is create options for the workers to have participation in the society. Let's say that many companies are doing that in in the country. 60% of the shares I give them, and I make this my workers to buy these stocks. For example, Ecopetrol in the country, they give this option of buying these shares, and they're not selling all of the shares. They are selling a small part of the shares. And what is this? That there is a more commitment from workers, and there is this another practice to improve the conditions of the of health, let's say, more commitment from the workers, services, complementary health services, the support from welfare companies, let's say, using the mask and social distancing, let's say in this case of COVID-19, and working with this. All other thing is work flexibility, offer employment options to have flexibility in the work experience, and let's say create telework. Talking about this is scheduled start earlier to leave earlier, let's say. In the case of brick company, we can work not big schedules but shorter schedules in implementation of telework. Let's say we can say from the administrative part, the accountant, let's say, that they can use to work at home or implement that without affecting the salary conditions. We realize that we have to improve this to work at home. For there are certain actions and organizations that can be taken. Now, talking about environmental practices, you are experts. We talk about this topic. Many of you are working with environmental practices, not because the environmental authority is talking about this, but we are conscious about this and we do it voluntarily. There are three practices related to the efficient use of energy, water, and they also supervision of emissions of gases and use systems of eliminations for the workers. And let's talk about the first. What can we do? Let's say in your case, if I'm including dosages to reduce the carbon emissions. And if we're talking from a different kiln, 160 um, um, kilograms of emissions to go to lower it down to 85, where I'm going to be efficient in the consumption of carbon use. What am I going to do with this? Am I using that in the cement company, selling it to the company? So we'll have to generate the circular economy models and the use for the use of water. Am I putting trees to fix these reservoirs? And am I taking care of the contaminated water? Am I giving these waters good treatment? Start auditing activities to identify how is the organization, and talking about the environment, how it is energetically speaking. Many people talk about the energy. It is more effective, the one that you use more, the carbon that you use more. And when we make the matrix, the energy is the cost that the carbon is the most used, but economically speaking, electric energy is better. So when we talk about energy, we can include variants or controlled, not to work with different engines or diminish hot points and distribution points and have a good maintenance is going to impact the production costs. Of course, how can you do that? And have to make evaluations and auditorships and train my employees in that. So you can start with the engine maintenance so you can diminish costs and you can improve the costs. Supervise emissions. Many of the companies that are together from CAEM, we have identified the inventory of gas emissions, and that is a carbon footprint, the hydric footprint, and we have identified opportunities in companies that were part of the Gamma project, and we made a project in energy efficiency in the organizations, and we have to start working with that, and let's see if the energy, renewable energy, can help us with that. And I want to work with the photovoltaic energy to work this. That is expensive. Think about it. But there are some other renewable energies. Why don't you use biomass to your carbon and you start working with these sources and the theory that cannot stop? There are many opportunities, and the last one, elimination systems. It has started to be very strong, and many organizations that works with sodium vapor, we switch it to LEDs, and we can use energy in that. And you can change it to another one that would be 30% of illumination, and the incentive that the workers that are part of the company, they can use transportation means that are sustainable are better for the environment. Let's say if a worker can use a bike instead of using a car, I can give you 1 day for every 15 days that you use the bike, for example, that you can use. The impact is strong in the operational costs, and then the quality of air, then the health of my employees, and the help of my communities because they are work complying with the environmentally speaking, and everything that you can do to diminish the fossil fuels use, everything that you could do to be more productive and efficient in the production impact, and the same way in the environment, the quality of air and the black carbon and all of those things. So I invite you to continue working from the environment and practices with the community, which is the last dimension that we're going to work with. There are two different practices, and one, create telework for the company, for the population that is unemployed, and what can I do with the young people around? What are we talking with the individuals without any home or homeless people? And the other one is incentive activities and volunteer with people for the interest of the community. So first we have to identify what is the community. No, well, I'm located in a municipality. Okay, that's fine. So what are the problems in the community? Let's say there is unemployment, there is an issue of young people that have a lot of risk because of the drugs, alcohol, people that have their women that have the risk to go to prostitution, or and we can identify these problems, and as entrepreneurs we can reduce their risk and involve them in the organizations. And how? Well, first identify the first thing, and to identify it is important to talk, to chat with the communities. The other one is identify the problems, what are the needs and the impact in these groups of interest. Identify the actions for the citizen participation. If I go to the community meetings, I go and listen what is happening. You can go there and you can find out about the problems, identify mechanisms and strategies that allow growing and increase work inclusion, maybe sensitization activities, and involve young people in this type of opportunities of employment. That could be a company. Maybe I have a friend that has a company, and I know about this young person that can work with that company. That's when we can recommend it, and have some strategies for social support, and have some other alliances with other stakeholders. Not every day we cannot find about that, so we invite you to be part of that. We wanted to tell you this from your business, from your companies, from the brick factories can work with the impact, with the triple impact. the welfare of the workers, to improve the organizations, the community, that is important. And if we're talking about black carbon and low pollutants, low time pollutants, we can work with the communities and the environment. Of course, everything that you can do to reduce the fossil fuels, we can help the environment that is ours because we live this place, but our grandchildren, our children are there, and we look for to lead a better environment, an economical environment. If I'm more efficient, if I'm more productive, if I have national investment, international investment, well, my business is going to grow. My micro company is going to grow to small, then small to medium, and then medium to big companies. That is what big societies look for. And well, thank you very much, and I want to thank IM, the ministry, to spread this message. And this is something else that we're working from IM. Thank you so much, and again, have a great afternoon, a good day to everyone that is here with us, and thank you again, and have a good day, guys. Thank you so much to the engineer Luis Pietro that presented the model and the work in this model in the industries of triple impact. Now, I welcome Sandra Villalobos, and she's an expert in the associations and business models. And well, welcome again, and the floor is yours. Well, good morning and good evening for everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me here to tell you about this topic that is the possibility to switch this environmental, this corporate environment, and how can we build a better environment for the business. So basically, among this context, talking about how to build the sustainable development goals are related to. So how Colombia is doing in this topic? Well, recently we've made evaluation from the sustainable development goals, and as you can see on the screen, we have a small delay on the commitment on these goals. It's not only Colombia, it's Latin America and Caribbean, mostly because it was a difficult and a special year hit by the pandemic as 2020. The OES index in the region is 63% over 100 is modest improvement in the determined goals. One of the important things related in Colombia is the inequality, and that is something that touches all the countries. But let's think that in Colombia, the income received by the 10% of the companies is 17.9 times that the 40% received by the rest of the population. It is like a traffic light. We don't have any of those goals in green. We have big challenges, not talking about inequality, but also at a level of peace, justice, ecosystem, decent work, and economic growth. So we're going to see about this topic related to what we were able to see recently. We have good news for the environment, let's say. However, the challenges increase. Let's say for the national government determined on the Paris Agreement some goals to reduce greenhouse gases recently. This goal increased to the 51% for 2030. So that is a good news. Those are good news for this topic, for those that love this topic, and for governments and the stakeholders related to this. These are very important challenges. And what happened at a corporate level, the 40% of the managers don't know about this, and that is something that we achieved in 2019 and in April of this year. And in the previous year, 2018, it was evaluated with 250 companies, in which we see this deficit in less than 10% of big companies that were able to work with the Sustainable Development Goals. It talks about something that is key in the process of the economic development, equality, and sustainability, and is the decent work and economic development. And in the case of the survey made by Senate, just 1.1% of the executives acknowledge this goal. So that is what the worst position. But we have some positive elements, and the quality elements in, let's say, in education, it's being acknowledged, and that is part of the agenda of many of the entrepreneurs. So how can companies give a better environment for businesses? We have three different elements. In the morning charts, we had Luis Prieto talking about an initiative that the national government in Colombia promoted during this year from the new framework of public policies that is related with one of the points that is applying independent standards and the OS reports. And the companies can link in an active way, and Colombia is promoted from the public policies, and in this regard, it is stated like that. So, what are these three elements that we are considering here? Well, first, starting with the independent standard, and the second element is creating corporate networks and consolidate agremiations to boost different vision at a regional level. And as a third element, generate alliances with governments to improve social investment, social environmental investment. It means that in the case of social investment and environmental investment, it guarantees inclusion processes that are effective in the regions. So these are the different proposals. It was mentioned by Luis related to independent standards, and this is an element that is the guide of sustainable development that proposes a methodology from the United Nations and the Worldwide Corporate Council with this allow the companies to comply with these goals. These are other goals that the companies can take or can assume and apply certain protocols allowing them to comply with them. The big societies, the green, the standard A1000 and relation and social responsibility. What is this guide that is recommended by the United Nations? I have three different focuses that are approaching different approaches that can work with social sustainable development. First is philanthropic actions, which we can talk about the companies assume to improve the social environment and it generates reputation for the companies. And what we are stating going forward, and this philanthropy, not stating like in actions, altruistic actions from a company, but those that are made will continue developing, is that we orient this to long-term processes that could be planned within the internal policies. The second one is the implementation of initiatives or the organizations to reduce and eliminate negative impacts and boost the positive ones for interest groups. It would be more profitable for companies, apart from having reputation earnings, it improves the social profitability. And the third one is the development of products and innovative services to contribute the Sustainable Development Goals. The approach 2 and 3 are applied to this methodology proposed by the United Nations. So, as a summarize, in this slide, I can tell you that these 5 steps proposed by the United Nations for the companies to implement these practices in compliance with the sustainable goals. And the first step is to understand the goals, to understand the goals we have. There are 169 goals, 17 goals in sustainable development, and the important thing is to understand them, not to have something to read, but it's how can we take them to the practice and how can we do it in an everyday work. So in the second step is to define priorities. How can we intervene that? And the third one is to establish the goals. What are the goals that we can comply as a company? What are our capacities? Who do we need to have an ally with? And the fourth step is the proposal of integration. How can we integrate our reality as company with that territorial reality? And in the fifth step, how can we report and how can communicate with the actions we're going to take in the future to have a continuity? The second element that we recommend for this how do we achieve and how can we build a better environment for companies is something related to the brick sector. We can say it as a sensitive way as they need to create association networks and corporate networks and consolidate agremiations or unions and shared value. And the concept of shared value is given by Michael Porter, that proposes this concept as a corporate tool that helps with the obtention of better income, giving also better benefits to other stakeholders of the economy and retribution of the achieved things to achieve growth. So we can align the success in the company to the success in the community, and that is the framework of creating these big societies that are promoting, mentioned by Luis. So what can we talk about this network work? In the Colombian case, many of the companies are not very happy with the association processes, and because they conceived many in Asian, I don't know, even in many Asian countries, the information is not shared, there is disloyal competition, and these are unions that are not, they have not a voice, not a leadership. There is no business association. There is no legitimacy talking about other stakeholders, let's say in the public institutions. So the proposal we have is that we can talk about network work and we can move forward little by little as we gain trust and we consolidate certain processes and decisions. So we can see in this slide at the horizontal level that many of the levels of working in network in the formalization levels, commitment and growth levels of these initiatives. So what happens with the formalization level? We know that the business associations are not homogeneous. They have certain levels of consolidation. Say, we have big companies at the level of cohesion and organization, they can be given like that. If the decision is taken at the level of big companies, the business associations represented in these associations their own interests, and they do not think about the needs of small and medium companies. In this topic about networks creation, we can talk about this gaps that we have to close. So we can talk about these goals and these achievements. What are we going to have in common, and knowing each other in this networking what this company does and what this other company do. Um, and also they start making agreements. Then alliances is another thing when we can work bilaterally with other companies and cooperation, let's say, that could be bilateral or unilateral or maybe vertical or in one direction at an association level. For example, in Colombia there is a mistake, and I think and I hope that this mistake would not be, the error is not mistaken, is not done having, let's say, legal way, but legal way changes the legitimacy of an association and is integrated, have it in the company, have leadership, trust, and have a business association strengthening to formalize a registered way before the Chamber of Commerce or a legitimate instances, and then think about constituting and build clusters and business associations. So these steps or modalities can be taken in a different way, not only to have actions together, but also have legal documents and formalize that the 100%. But also we can have initial agreements and progressively build the legitimacy and formality of these agreements. What happens with the brick sector? We have a lot of artisanal companies and we have a lot of informality. And this situation is given very frequently, so the recommendations are here to talk about the artisanal companies from three elements: the producer, the family, and the artisanal company. These are three instances that are related, and the artisanal case, everything is related to each other. So these companies, for example, include all the family, or the producer does not have a way to cover social security, personal protectional elements, and also these are informal companies. So the way working in network and association is that these companies have a tendency to not working in a good way with conflicts, and of course they don't know how to fix it and how to work in network and an association. We have to fix these conflict resolutions, and then strengthen the association link within the organization, and we can give that in strengthening the families and the producers in a concept that should be different in the company. Let's say in production, inclusive production. And when we talk about that, we involve the governments, the national governments or local governments, for that inclusion to take place from the public policies, not from some demands to be formalized, but this should be demanded from a productive inclusion focus. Other thing is increase the number of associates and measure their potential. That is important because sometimes people they don't have a potential for association. Why is that related to it? We're going to see that in a while. And the association has to create a capacity of association, and I create this capacity when I have some competences that I have. If I don't trust anyone, if I don't understand what does mean, what works, what working in an association means, if I don't understand the common problems we're going to talk about in a while. But the potential of association is key in these artisanal companies and other companies that could be small or medium. Another element is motivate the interest to work in a collective work, and that doesn't mean is that people don't know how to work in a team, or they don't have this situations, and the other one is to close the social gaps, part of the producers and brick families. That is related to access to health, education, better education, higher level, talking about conscience on the environment topic, and other thing is related to the communication and social elements that are related to these families that come from poverty process because they have generation and regeneration, and these social gaps are being given by the generations. And how can we do this? The association potential. One of the elements is association competences that are key, and we can define them, determining the context. And it's key that a person that works in a brick sector should know how to read, have the basic education, a minimum of training, and be part of a productive group or as in a business association, and they have to think as a business association, not but they have to think about a territory, a community, and they are part of an association that is acknowledged by the person. And the second element is the experience in the brick sector, talking about the knowledge and more than a year of experience. If there is a family, include children and family members to contribute to this family, to this sector, this brick sector. The other one is technological conversion. We can move forward from rudimentary technologies to better technology, and we have to be able to have this conversion and this training. Another one is formalization. It is also that even if these companies are small and artisanal, they should be interested in being formal. These are elements like avoiding children work, fix the working schedule, have protection elements, have books, accounting books, interest in go to the bank, have permits, use soil use authorization, and we have to take this or consider this in an environment normalization. We talked about this event, and we have to acknowledge that the brick activity has an impact on the environment. But this impact should be measured, and this impact should they have to consider that it has an impact on the workers and the environment and the people that have to work, and the network is an availability to have an evaluation of this environmental impact and acknowledge that this activity has an impact on the environment. Another element is commercialization and marketing. So the person identify the clients that have an interest in the market, and they have their availability to work in an alliance, and let's say identifying productions costs and the prices of the products produced. And the other one is generate alliances with the governments to improve the social environmental investment. And it should be materialized in some elements that are agreements and initiatives and collective initiatives to get projects to improve societies and communities, agreements, alliances, public-private alliances, plans, development plans or sector plans involving actions at a sector level, including the participation of the stakeholders, programs and projects together with a certain tax incentives, exemption, and priorities on credits, on loans, on those things. So, what happens in Colombia, talking about this experience that we had. Colombia has been more in one sector than in others, in hydrocarbons, for example, and in mining and energy. They have low demands from the contracts for the companies that are going to develop certain projects, destined a percentage for programs that are for the benefit of the communities. Let's say this is a trajectory that gave us an evaluation, the Ministry of Mines and the National Agency of Hydrocarbons, and the more the things that are related to the impacts are the companies, public utilities, roads, and scholarships for students. It means that the companies have from their philanthropy the idea to help, but these aids are not reflected in a positive impact on the community. So we are telling them that there are some experiences that show where can they get bigger or high or lower impact. And it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done, but they should be evaluated and have a continuous parties, celebrations, and works that are not concluded, and the employment that is unemployment that has no continuous, or is unemployment that is not properly formal, let's say. And this sometimes these projects are not in agreement with the priorities of the companies and or the communities or the territorial institutions, and what is proposed to generate alliances in this investment is to listen to the communities and have an agreement with the communities and establish some priorities to board this investment. And so how, well, the Colombian case, Luis showed an experience that is important in terms of that Colombia is aligned from a public policy with the compliance with the communities in this sustainable development goals. And this is a big regulation that's talk about work and training, and we have competitivity agreements, sector boards, regional boards, social security, and this decree establishes governance standards. And this regard, I want to stop here and talk about this component, the practices with the communities, apart from the five that Luis mentioned it. We can define of this social development and the environment communities that they prevent or mitigate the negative and impact on the interest groups. These acts or these corporate actions are aligned with to improve the sector, and my co-worker talk about this in the conscience level, and talking about this conscious to make these decisions. In the practice with the communities, there are two practices that clearly I want to state because they are feasible in any context of the countries that are listening to us today. So the first one is the need that these big societies create work for the population structurally unemployed. Is this, when we're talking about these people, is this population that cannot find a work independently from the changes in the economy and because of the pandemic, and they cannot find any work because this unemployment is linked to a social condition or personal condition. So therefore, what we're promoting is that the companies open this lens of this environment, and we can tell them for you to develop this practice, you have to check these actions related the knowledge of the environment, work inclusion of people and population groups, and identify what are these people, these young people in risk, why are they in risk, those people that went out of their release from jail. In this case, we can talk about people older than 50 years old. They cannot find any job and they've been without any job for many years. And here we have two actions that we have to look with to be coherent with this practice: the knowledge of the environment and work inclusion of people and these population groups. so make them effective. And the second practice that is recommended by the national government that is related to the philanthropy is with the incentive to volunteer activities and the creation of alliances with foundation of, or third parties that support the social works. And in here, there are many actions related to it. Let's say, um, try to participate more with the community, talk with the stakeholders in this territory, with the academy, with the institutions that manage information on this topic, work effectively with social investment or through third parties, which means that if you offer to give the donations, you have to establish an amount of those donations, and this amount should correspond to a certain percentage on your on your profits, or an amount that the company wants to give, or something that should be worked in an effective way. And what does it mean? To be linked with organizations or micro companies that generate goods and services within the value chain in the framework of your um, supplies, or maybe consumers or suppliers, but it should there should be included the communities in the environment should be included in there. And what we're saying here is that look at this map, each of the possibilities that you can have, and try to do it with the community that is better for you, and try to find out to work with the environment and the company. So when we can talk about this sustainable development objectives as a short, medium, and long term, what we talk about short term is that we need an internal group in the organization to make this decision, to create this possibility, and we have to identify who in this community. We don't know as companies who in our communities are, because we don't know how they work, how the private and how the communities work, and everything has a framework and like a regulation framework that we think it is complex. We don't know that this, for example, our network can be part of a community or an association of in condition of displacement, or maybe condition people with conditions of um, discapacity, people that have people in risk. So we do first is what is your community. You are located in certain territory, and in your territory you share goals with the community, with the people that live in that part, in that territory. So you have to identify your community because you're part of it, and identify the independent standard to be followed. The reference we had, the goals from the methodology stated from the United Nations, are the references, but we have to determine which one we should go with to start reporting the compliance of these goals. Then we have to identify the population group or environmental and our environment to find out what decisions. And then when we present the decision, it's focused on the internal policies of the company. So what we are proposing is that we have this consensus, this conscience, this change of paradigms, that we move forward to the economic part, and we work with social profitability, and work with the collectives around us. And the medium term is manage the change, workers and allies, suppliers, and as I told you before, as a shared value, work with the self-regulation and all those companies that are supplying us and helping this compliance. And then in the long term, identify new support, new work fronts with other necessities, with other groups, and keep ODS or standard, depending on the standard we selected. These are some final ideas, and it is proposed in function of the experiences we have. And the first thing that we need to think about is collective welfare and the environment where our companies are located, is that we involve the people that are interested or beneficiary of these actions we're going to develop. And who are we going to work with? Programs talking about young people in risk, we are going to work with them, or with associations working with problems, young people and problems in the territory. Another one is build trust. We cannot move forward at an organization or association levels or alliances if we don't have any trust. And this trust should be built complying with the word, with demonstration, with support, with transparency, with a lot of communication. Then diagnose and co-create solutions. And when we diagnose that, we have to have scientific evidence, have those diagnoses and take sources sustainable and credible, and co-create with those people interested in those solutions. We have resources as companies, and these resources are not enough, and we can expand them with strategic allies with the public sector or in the private sector and in a certain territory. Let's say in the Colombia, we can work with the competition, let's say investment or work for a solution in the same territory, let's say taking products out or improving accessibility, let's say uh, strengthen and make a cohesion in the public and private sectors, and strengthen all these measurements in the long term, determine some action plans, and here action focus without any damage. These interventions sometimes can generate more damage than a benefit. So we have to prevent these actions to, let's say, work with these people, for example, work with the knowledge of the how to board specific problems and the working with the working conditions depending on the disability of the person, and the way to work within the companies, and knowledge and acceptance of the work of our nucleus to accept this person that comes from a different situation outside, and it is interiorized in this change of paradigm within the organization before this person to start working within this organization. So these are the actions without any damage. We can be strengthened with we are strong or avoid taking actions without any knowledge to avoid making damage to people, for say LGBT population, or people that were in jail, or and all the internal topics that we have to create to acceptance capacities for this in work inclusion or social inclusion. Go further than philanthropy. It's not enough that we have a big heart and we make marginal investment that is not related to the company, but instead this philanthropy evolved to a policy, to plans, to programs, and better sustainability in the companies, and allow that these projects that start finish that can be measured and have an impact, and not only be, let's say, for events or different situations that benefit in the moment, but they don't have a positive impact on the long term. So avoid false expectations, give false expectations to the communities, just to reunite the communities and communicate a project when it's actually planned and dimensioned, the pros and cons, and of course have the resources and the decision to make them effective. And in this case, to communicate, and communicate is the most important thing at every level. So one thing is, it is possible to do it from the public policy, from the initiatives, and from alliances that we can build with the communities and the national and the local governments to comply with these sustainable goals in an effective way and in a happy way, let's say, for everyone. So up to here, I finish with my presentation. Thank you very much for this process that we had this year, and to the next opportunity. Thank you very much, Sandra, and thank you very much for the people that was with us today, the international guests from Asia, Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Mexico, and we have entrepreneurs from Medellin as well. And thank you very much for all your accompaniment for the 4 sessions that we had today. And take the advantage that we have 2 more sessions for the next year, in which we are going to work with the technical work and are introduced to public policies and webinars and experiences of entrepreneurs and associations at national level that we want to share with you and take the advantage of this year. Was a different year for us and virtuality in this time, and thanks to everyone and give you have happy holidays, to be happy with your family and have prosperity and health. And for the next year, we can have the guide for the public policies available for your use and the model of work and tools for the entrepreneurs. So, well, we hope for the next year have you here, and from my part and from the CAN team and the consultants and the work team and the study, to thank you and have happy holidays. Merry Christmas and a prosperous year 2021. Thank you very much.
El Ministerio y el Gobierno colombiano decidió en el 2013 ser parte de la coalición del clima y del aire limpio, reiterando su compromiso con el clima y con la salud de los colombianos. Desde hace unos 5 años atrás venimos trabajando en unas mesas permanentes con el sector ladrillero que buscan generar conocimiento y articular acciones para mejorar la calidad del aire en torno a este sector productivo del país.
Este tipo de programas nos ha llevado a que el sector ladrillero se organice y que los empresarios, pequeños empresarios artesanales, empiecen a aliarse y a trabajar hacia un mismo objetivo.
Es tener un puesto en una mesa que se discute mucha problemática que tenemos a nivel nacional.
Hemos podido crear sinergias entre cada uno de los gremios ladrilleros a nivel nacional.
Hemos podido plantear sobre la mesa nuestras propuestas para el cambio de políticas públicas.
Y qué gratificante poder saber y poder conocer el contexto de nuestro sector a nivel nacional.
El sector ladrillero en Colombia era una de las principales fuentes de material particulado que afectaba a la comunidad en temas respiratorios y cardiovasculares. Se reconoce el trabajo que ha tenido la CAEM, Corporación Ambiental Empresarial, que desde mucho tiempo atrás la iniciativa viene trabajando con el sector ladrillero y desde sus inicios ha aportado conocimiento técnico y nos ha permitido un acercamiento con personas en campo, con conocimiento y a través de identificación de tecnologías de reducción de emisiones.
A partir de ese momento, el ladrillero ha empezado a tener como un cambio de conciencia y de mentalidad de que es importante controlar las emisiones, pero además de eso, medirlas.
Pues todas las empresas estamos interesadas en tener pues unas emisiones más limpias.
Las mediciones nos dan una información técnica que nos permite a todos hablar en los mismos términos. Sin mediciones estamos hablando en abstracto.
Hemos, como país, reducido el número de hornos artesanales y promovido que se generen mayores actualizaciones tecnológicas que se ven representadas en reducciones de emisiones contaminantes.
Ya están empezando a construir chimeneas, a diseñar hornos como mejorados, haciéndoles de pronto una cúpula y dirigiendo todos los gases de la combustión a un punto, buscando la medición y el control.
Es una manera también de cuidar la salud de la comunidad que está a nuestro alrededor, como la de nosotros mismos.
Que nosotros como sector estemos más conscientes de la responsabilidad que tenemos y de los cumplimientos que tenemos que tener de la norma.
El sector ladrillero que representamos es un sector industrial, formal, sometido a la ley en toda su extensión desde el punto de vista de medio ambiente, de regulación económica.
A nivel internacional se reconoce el trabajo de Colombia, de la CAEM, en materia de las mediciones y el trabajo técnico y científico que se ha dado con el sector ladrillero.
Un agradecimiento especial a la Corporación Ambiental Empresarial, a la CAEN y a la Coalición de Clima y Aire Limpio por tener presente nuestro gremio.
Son más de 10 años en los que, con la ayuda de ellos, hemos logrado muchos de los procesos que hemos incorporado en nuestra organización.
Estar incluidos en la Mesa Ladrillera Nacional ha sido para nosotros, eso es un sueño hecho realidad.